I have to ask the question, Joe, are you still on the dog's bed? Or have you migrated to a chair?
No, I've moved out since then.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, down in the living room now. But,
wow.
There is a dog under the desk, though.
It's a different dog, though. I mean, the
different dog.
Hang on, you moved house and dog?
No, we're just dog sitting, if that's what you call it, looking after my wife's parents' dog.
Yeah, very good.
So she's been very good under the table.
She's probably going to, bark in with a
really Willow. Willow's staring at a plastic onion. It's all good. She's been staring at it for about past hour.
Hang on.
I'm not even making that up.
Sorry, in the design of General Dog's toys, I never figured that plastic onions would break that pipe.
It's because these toys, they're layered.
Oh. We need to start the podcast. Right.
Transmission is go. Underbase Classic is live.
Hello folks, welcome to the Underbase. My name is Adam, 88M, and a very warm welcome to the Classics, the show that proves that you don't need more than a couple of listeners to get by, as long as you force those listeners into downloading the podcast several hundred times each. We are up to issue 6 of the American run, which is the worst of two evils, and whilst I worry over the grammatical issues of that title, let's just meet our band of retro heroes that will be helping me through this. Firstly, from the sophisticated virtual lounge bar, which is the Old Oil House, we have Master Tricky. How are you, sir?
I'm very good, Adam.
Good.
Thank you for asking.
From the creative virtual art studio of DeviantArt, we have Master Joan Teebee. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, Tartius. Hello.
I told you Teebee.
Teebee?
Teebee.
It's close enough.
And from the very real chorus line of your local superior Gilbert and Sullivan production, we have Mr. Paul Logan Blaze Anderson. How are you, sir?
Bonjour, ça va?
Oui, ça va.
Ah, très bon, très bon. Ah, the cabaret, so good.
You can't
Hello.
The hello policeman was more authentic.
Pretty much.
Somewhere there's a Joey Barton going, see, I was not so bad. So, gents, this story is from issue 6 of the American G1 run, dated July 85. It was also issue 24 and 25 of the UK run, which was 10th to the 23rd of August and 24th to the 6th of September. My birthday. Hooray! It was bi-weekly at this point. The comic, not my birthday. The Brit printing featured the backup strips Machine Man, hooray!
Yes.
Robocapers, hurrah! Chromobots, Planet Terry, boo! And Matt and the Cat, who was in one of the issues. Issue 25 was the last we would see of Planet Terry.
Oh.
Moving on. It also contained as well a couple of fact file interfaces. Think of this as expanded TF bio cards. Very nice.
Who did we get?
Warpath and Ramjet.
Boom!
Exactly.
Now, Chris McFeely got an idea.
All of this detail has, of course, overlooked the real added extra of the UK printing. The added extra that has long left our overseas cousins, seething in bitter rage and resentment. Yes, ladies and gents, issue 25 had a free Kellogg's Cornflakes model airliner. It was a plastic jet paired with a cereal, so it must be good. Now, I should warn you, it didn't transform, which was a problem when you stuck it on the front of a Transformers magazine. I broke mine almost instantly.
Oh.
I'm sure I was not alone. The wings fall back! Snap. No, they don't.
So it was a mode locked Octane.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Beat at the Nucleon.
I mean, I know it preceded Crunchy Nut Thundercracker by several years, so it wasn't a full, serial tie-in.
Fail.
You're just annoyed because I managed to get Crunchy Nut into a Transformers reference.
Pretty much.
The Worst of Two Evils was written by Bob Budiansky. Art was by Alan Kupperberg. Letters by Rick Parker. Colors Noel Yomtov. Editor was Jim Owsley. And editor-in-chief was Jim Shooter. We have a couple of covers. Issue 6's American cover was sponsored by Blendtec. Decepticon commanders Shockwave and Megatron fighting in midair whilst the rather unfortunately positioned US Army helicopter watches in the foreground. Art is by Kupperberg. And suddenly we have a dose of the mystic.
Doctor Strange is in the house.
Guess who's not professional? Sorry.
Oh, no, I wanted you to just continue with the call. It would have been great. Hello? I'm just chatting to some losers on Skype. Don't worry. I'll phone you back.
It's me from the future. This is weird.
Don't go into the basement. And whatever you do, don't let Adam beep. The UK issue 24 cover was an interesting twist on the American style. It was Shockwave in gun form firing upon an oil rig, with the rig dominating the viewer's attention, dark smoke issuing from the rig, and framing the use yet again of a Decepticon logo for this UK edition. Issue 25 of the UK edition reused Kupperberg's American art, but let the leaders fill the cover and creep over their titles, so giving it a bit more impact, and almost taking your eyes away from the aforementioned serial-based aviation transportation. Gents, what do you think of the covers? Tricky, we'll start with you.
I'm kind of I'm distracted by the banner at the top. It's beautiful, the purple and the Decepticon version of this. So used to seeing the Autobot one, so it's really nice to see the purple and silver one.
Yeah.
The US number 6 one. I don't know. It's fine. It's a bit uninspired, perhaps. Shockwave appears to be balancing on a helicopter.
Yeah.
Nice trick if you can pull it off, I guess. Is the UK cover got text and the US one hasn't?
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe so, yes. I'm just frantically checking now. Bear with me a second, caller.
Well, I'm looking at the comic in front of me, which has no text, and the UK 25 seems to say CF1 to base, CF1 to base. You ain't gonna believe this.
Yes, that's it.
I wonder why they felt the need to do that. Is Shockwave's knee somehow offensive, though?
And he's discreetly covering up.
Yeah.
Maybe they just like the idea of sticking some humans in there, changing the format. I mean, they've obviously changed just the way the cover looks anyway, with the title around it. So, it wouldn't surprise me if they were busy doing all sorts of things.
Maybe they saw the American cover and they thought, hang on, why is there a helicopter there? It's doing nothing. Let's give it something to do.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah, my favourite is definitely the UK 24.
Ominous.
I love the black smoke just steaming off the stack. And the lovely little subheading of Shockwave's Act of War.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really thematic image right there.
Cool. Joe?
Yeah, I agree. I prefer that one, the oil rig one. It's good to see Shockwave's alt mode as well. And just causing a load of destruction. I like how the smoke's just billowing up into the top and forming part of the banner. That looks cool. But yeah, the other one's alright. The one with Megatron getting top half of his fusion cannon blasted off. But it does look like they're sort of just dancing in the sky, really, because that little bit of pink at the bottom, I think that were maybe meant to be coloured like the sea or something, or some ground, because it does look like they're floating in midair a bit.
Yeah.
It's okay. It
does the job. It sells a comic, but I don't know. Paul, what do you think?
I gotta admit, I don't like the US style. Tricky was right. It is a bit uninspired. Doesn't do much for me. Of all the ones, I do prefer the issue 24 best. But even then, I'm not like blown away by it. To be brutally honest, I think I'm ruined by the previous issues. That just leaps in my mind as the pinnacle.
It's true, actually. I mean, the previous issue was incredibly powerful. I do wonder as well if the UK maybe based its cover on that previous one in the States version, and thought, right, we need to up our game. We need to make it a bit more sinister. And the thing is as well that they are establishing, I think even more than the American version, that Shockwave is a force to be reckoned with. And that's something that we're going to see throughout this issue. Ironic, really, when Transformers starts as a series, both leaders are actually going to be quite ineffective at the very start. But anyway, we start our issue off the coast of Oregon on an oil drilling platform, a gleaming steel testament to Transformer Tony Stark's unceasing struggle to make profits. This, folks, is GB Blackrock's high-tech rig, the one he foolishly boasted about on TV last issue, a rig that contains a sauna, a jacuzzi, office blocks, a sizable military force, docking platforms, and probably a shopping mall. And most of its tech is due to its star employee, a young Miss Josie Bella. Now, the workers are swarming over its structure and far too busy at the task at hand to see a giant 80-foot ray gun, as you would, flying towards them until it stops overhead and claims the structure for itself. Blackrock, in his office, observes the intruder and orders his defenses online. Swarms of very 80s cartoon show kind of single-man helicopters streak out to meet this threat, whilst Josie, looking very much like Oracle from a Batman adventure, commands the site's weaponry. The resulting battle is fierce, but does about as much damage to Decepticon's new commander Shockwave as a fly swatter hitting an elephant. Shockwave fires massive energy bolts ripping into the structure like the hot knife through butter. In desperation, Blackrock orders Josie to fire harpoons, and he's actually hurt Shockwave, which in retrospect was probably a bad move by the humans. The original Shockwave was a master of many forms of energy. He blinds everyone nearby with a dazzling light show, which, sadly, if you've owned a G1 Shockwave, you'll know the light wasn't that impressive, and sends the airborne defences crashing into the sea. Blackrock wants to leave. He orders his crew to leave. Josie won't though. She's going to keep the battle going. And that's a shame, because it isn't even a blast from Shockwave that does it. Not directly. It's debris from the harpoon's mooring, snapping free of Shockwave. It crashes into the rig's power system, sets off a chain reaction of electrical chaos. Imagine someone getting wrapped in electrical fire, smothered in it. That's exactly what happens to poor old Josie here, as an entire structure's worth of electrical current appears to flow back into her. The blast throws her to the ground, and poor old GB charges over, carries her outside, only to meet the transformed Shockwave, who advises all who remain that they'll be allowed to leave to act as messengers, heralds of the coming Decepticon rule of planet Earth. It's one of the most dominant displays of power that we've had in Transformers. So Paul.
Yep.
Nice, bright, breezy start.
Hell yes. I love the fact you got Man of Steel Superman at the front of the magazine.
Oh yeah.
When he's on the oil rig, and really, you keep bringing up that he is Tony Stark. He really is in this issue. It's ridiculous. It's like he's so dapper, and
his shirt's the star of the show, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. It's so dapper.
Look at that.
And you've got to figure he's probably a little bit drunk when he's saying, if you want one, build one yourself. And he releases a load of G.I. Joe vehicles.
Yeah, they're definitely Cobra Fangs.
Well, this was it, wasn't it? It was the cartoon, it was the expectations of military hardware in the 80s. I wonder if any genuine military suppliers were getting tired in the 80s of people phoning them up going, so you can do those one-man copter things with lasers. No, we can't. No. Can you put speakers on so they all sing G.I. Joe while they're attacking? No, you can't. As for GB's shirt, I think you'll find that GB's shirt is approximately 5 sizes too big for him. And comes with its own muscle suit.
He's got some medallions as well. Looks like he's got 3 medallions going on.
Hang on, I'm just checking to see that he hasn't also got a series of rings and he isn't the Mandarin.
The shirt's just a high diffusion reactor. Or it's arc reactor.
I think it might be nuclear the way it's glowing.
It's impressive chest hair.
The shirt's even red. He couldn't be more Tony Stark if he tried.
No.
Yeah, but no, it's like I say, it's an impressive intro. I know the weird thing I'd like the most is, I think it's page 4 of this, just before he lets loose.
Mm-hmm.
You get the zoom in on, it's just black on, well, what would be his eye, but it's actually the cannon.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's quite intense. But then I just lets loose, and you get the first of a few dalliances with electricity.
Yeah, and he does, I mean,
it's a shocking issue.
No, I'm not going down that path. No way. There's an awful lot though. I mean, an awful lot is made of Shockwave's raw power. But also, I mean, Tricky, this idea that he turns up, he takes everyone out, and then he calmly orders them off. No further bloodshed. He's almost civil, but he's just stood there going, I've beaten you, sod off, and tell people I'm coming.
Yeah, it's peace, do decency. Hello, chaps. Thanks for this IO platform. Tip pip pip.
Peace through crumpets.
No, the thing I like most about this is that he doesn't kill anybody.
Mm.
I mean, he's been to the A-team school of how to attack somebody.
Absolutely.
But I think the reason for that is that you need sort of Josie's accident to feel... It has to have the emotional punch, and if you've just seen sort of 25 people get mowed down, you're looking at it thinking, well, at least she's still alive. They're dead.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. Josie's the victim, and Blackrock is the way that you find out about her being the victim, because Shockwave's talking down to him. Yeah. And this, by the way, this is going to start something for you readers. This is going to start this enmity between Blackrock and Shockwave, which will last. I mean, they do develop this. It's probably one of the strongest relationships that Shockwave ever has with an opponent, because he just seems to pick on him all the time.
Now, there's an argument here that Josie's hatred of robots is kind of misplaced.
Yeah.
Because either the construction crew who built this harpoon station on the end of a rig where it's easily snappable, or Blackrock himself for ordering this attack, is kind of more to blame than Shockwave, who, let's be fair, is just flying around.
There's a few other things in future issues, though, which serves to kind of twist this anger against what happened and the fact that the injury was caused, and turn this into a hatred. The saddest thing, of course, is that the hatred is all directed towards all robots, and very little of it is actually directed towards Shockwave itself. Mm. But we'll go into that at a later issue. And also the fact as well that they've changed Josie's age, apparently. They've made her look older. And I think that might be, I know some people will say, art error. But actually I think that because she was so young in the previous issue, I think maybe to have somebody that young fried might have been on the border of what was allowed in the comic.
I wonder if somebody had actually thought about what costume they were going to have her in.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, hang on, if we've got a teenage girl, that's a bit creepy.
She almost feels a bit like a different character. She seems a lot more sort of confident, and I just remember from the previous issue, she just looked like a bit of a bubbly student, sort of gifted bubbly student. Whereas here she's like, I'm going to take him out. Yeah,
character development is not exactly a plus when it comes to the 80s for females in Transformers. Josie Bella really gets the gamut of everything. Changing personality, changing hairstyles, and costumes. Well, I think the last issue's costume was the best that she got. Yeah. It's all down here from here, folks. So, downhill, should I say. Anyway, Shockwave's success, depending on just how much of the rig is left usable, represents a gain for the cons. One member, however, of his army is far from pleased, and that's Megatron. He's slowly recovering from his injuries still, strung up for his former troops to observe. As Shockwave orders his cons to mobilize, poor old Megs can only watch as others do Shockwave's bidding. Now, the artist, I noticed, cheats a little bit on the transformation in lieu of Skywarp just beaming into his alt mode, but that's one of many art foibles that you can have in this issue. But in response, Meg's fury gets the better of himself. He ends up yelling at an empty base, and you just know that Megs is not going to be helpless for long. Again, another good display of Shockwave's dominance. He's actually achieving something more than Megatron's done. However, we hit page 10 of this comic, ladies and gents, and only then do we go back to what was the shocking conclusion to last issue's story. Buster, in the Ark, on his own, standing in front of the Optimus Prime, the Autobot leader, the mighty warrior, the hero, technically, of this franchise. And you could not imagine him in a more helpless position. Glowing ice cream clone above him, no body beneath him. And Prime states that only Buster can save the Autobots. He asks Buster to trust him and to do something for him. And you get a beautiful moment as Buster once again remembers the promise that he made to his father. You know, his father, the one in hospital after getting toasted by Jazz. And once again, Buster completely then chucks that out the window and goes, "You name it, Optimus, I'll do anything you want me to," as his eyebrows squirm with passion and commitment. Optimus asks Buster to remove several, let's just say, odd-looking pink tendrils attached to his head. Please don't, lads. Please, I know what you want to say, but don't. And he asks Buster the young man, to stick these against his head.
Too late.
Paul, if you have an incident due to this, it's not my fault. And once he's got them securely suckered against his head, this will then achieve a mind link between the robot and the human. What happens then is unknown. All that we see is that Buster briefly becomes Sonic the Hedgehog as a form of energy, charges into him. It's described as electrical energy, but it's very different from that. And then Buster proceeds to faceplant the floor, his pink t-shirt still ablaze, which obviously causing much grief to fashionistas out there. Paul, we'll start with you.
Oh dear.
When you first read this scene, was it just supremely odd?
Well, I never saw it in the way that you're suggesting, which is implying that maybe I'm growing up.
No, this is it though. I didn't get it at the time. I still didn't now, because even back then I was like, so the things that were attached to his head are now attached to Buster.
Yeah.
But does that mean that then Prime is linked to Buster through that kind of ice cream cone of glowing doom above his head?
I've never really got that deep, but that's about the only thing I think it creates a loop. The only thing annoys me about this is basically Prime screwed him over.
Yeah.
It really has. He's done a Johnny Mnemonic on him. It's like, because, you know, in reflection, you've basically downloaded a huge amount of data in his head, which is not going to do him any good. And you said, okay, look, it's going to be fine. Just trust me. It's going to trust me. I'm sure if Prime had basically said, look, I need to get something out of here. Can you take it out of here? It'll have to be in your head. He would have said fine. He trusts him. As it is, he was duplicitous and he's like, made it go. I don't like Prime here. I know he's weak and bodiless, but he's a bit duplicitous as well.
Mm. Actually, that's a very good point. Do you think that there was ever any influence from the likes? Because Johnny Mnemonic, as a short story, for those folks out there, part of the Burning Chrome book by William Gibson, would that have inspired this at all? And it's a long shot, but
it is. I don't know. I'd say it's a long shot if it was.
And we should now just note for a moment that if anyone wants to find out more information, please watch the film starring Keanu Reeves.
Yes, the definitive version.
Go and watch it. It is pure 90s weirdness.
He can store 8 megabyte of data in his head.
Yes.
And we'll have to do a commentary on that, Paul.
Digital dolphins and Dolph Lundgren as a cyber priest.
Oh, man.
Sounds awesome.
That's it. Podcast's over. Let's do a commentary on Johnny Mnemonic. So, Joe, what do you think of this weird and wonderful mind swap meld?
Yeah. Now you've pointed it out, I don't get how they link up to him when they come out of his head, but Prime doesn't seem to have any concern of what this is going to do to him.
Yeah.
And it just collapses, and anything could have happened, really. The reader doesn't really understand what's going on, so adds a bit of mystery.
Mm. And I know we will go into, because there's obviously a second half to this sequence. But again, Tricky, did you read this at the time, or was this in a collected edition that you read this part?
I wasn't reading it at this time. I got a collected edition pretty soon after this. I think they did like a Best of the UK or something, which covered these issues. I think I read it there. Yeah, it's deeply disturbing, because what's Prime's plan? He believes he's the last Autobot left alive in this base. He's desperate to safeguard something and get it out of there. And he's going to put it into this guy he's known for, a couple of weeks? With no real plan about how he's going to extract it afterwards, or what this guy's going to do. And for all he knows, he walks next door and Megatron steps on him.
Yeah.
It really is a Hail Mary idea. But what I do really like about this is, I don't know how you guys are reading this.
I've got the collected classics and I've got a PDF.
Right. If you get the collected classics, turn back 2 pages.
I know what you're going to say here, because I noticed that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mirrors it, doesn't it?
It does. 2 pages back, you've got Josie getting zapped, and exactly the same panel, you got Buster.
Okay.
It gets better.
Similar colours as well.
Go forward a bit.
Go forward a bit, and the exact same thing happens.
With Meggie.
And, in fact, the parallels with Meggie, as I'll go through and later on, between Meggie and Josie are stunningly close.
Yeah.
Like, in what they do after this as well. They almost mirror each other perfectly. But you're right, in one issue, we have 3 very similar incidents happening to 3 very different people.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just checking the sound effects. We get a furzack, a furzap, and what does Josie get? Just a furz.
Yeah.
So similar sound effects as well. I didn't notice the Megatron one.
Yeah, only 2 of them involve a creation.
Yeah. Yeah. I also feel I'm duty bound to point out that this is not Megatron. This is clearly Skeletor.
Yes, the face is very... it's an odd face for Meggie.
He's still going through all sorts. I mean, the artists are still trying to get their heads around this. You've got some artists which are more toy accurate, and we will see an example of that very strongly later on. And you've got other artists that are heading more towards the cartoony sort of aesthetic.
Yeah.
And of course, being certain artists like to do this, I spotted, even whilst I was writing the notes for this, several images of characters being used more than once in the issue.
Oh.
It does make you wonder how up against it they were at this point. Because this was supposed to be a mini-series.
Yeah.
That has suddenly been expanded into an ongoing. I mean, I know there was a gap.
Yeah.
But they were clearly up against time, money, whatever, to get these things out.
It was just, the market for these toys, and they saw this comic, let's face it, they would see this comic as lasting only for a set amount of time.
Yeah.
In terms of the Transformers, to put it into scope for people at home, especially the newer readers who, if you're a newer reader, what on earth are you doing listening to this podcast? But, like, before, for instance, Star Wars, movie merchandise wasn't really a thing. And small action figures of things like Star Wars, nobody was interested. Seriously, nobody was interested. It was just like, it was a waste of money. In the 80s, tie-ins to cartoons would be a mini-series, but you wouldn't get much more. So when Transformers sold like hot tea cakes, you do get this opinion that they were charging stuff out. And there probably was quite an emphasis to just get this out the door. But at the same time, they have put the scripting in there to try and develop this further. And I think that's why let's face it, Shockwave gets an incredibly heavy, strong arc, which lasts for a fair old bit.
Yeah.
And I think he was the character that was going to guide us through this transition period. And then once he was done, I reckon that they thought, right, we'll go back to more traditional stories, and then we'll start adding in the toys.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And the scary thing is that they seem to be doing a better job of it than Hasbro are letting IDW do at the moment, because they seem to have a bit more flexibility in terms of their plots.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, back to where we were. So whilst all this weird and dark stuff is going on, outside we have Ratchet. Now, Ratchet is technically the last real hope for the Autobots. He is the last Autobot fully functioning anyway at the moment. He sat there awkwardly like a wallflower at dance, waiting for Buster to emerge. Shockwave returned to the Ark. By the way, Buster didn't actually tell Prime that Ratchet was outside. If he had, then Prime might have actually said to Buster, look, I'm going to give you a little bit of a zap. Can you pass it on to Ratchet for me? But no. He just notes Shockwave returning. Now, Ratchet as well reminds the reader that Shockwave disappeared millions of years ago, and he wonders how on earth he's still functioning. Again, reminding us that there's a backstory here. But Shockwave's first stop upon getting into the Ark is Megatron. He checks the health of the former leader, advising him of achievements that he's won, and getting a purely logical dig in regards to his success in areas where Megatron failed. This line of Shockwave's again, where he's not emotional, but there does seem to be an element of pride in what he's achieving. Megs is clearly not impressed and rips one of his cable med feeds free, so his patience is clearly about to run out. Right, the next scene is the second part of the Prime Buster scene, and this, folks, is worthy of a Michael Bay film because of the sheer ridiculousness of it. So Buster got fried by Prime, but rather than wake up and go, "What the hell did you just do?" Buster instead staggers out like he's on a walk of shame the next morning. Prime is clearly the one pretending to be asleep here, because he doesn't say anything. Neither of them say what happened. Buster is weak, uncoordinated, stumbling, and by the time he gets up to
You're warping
Ratchet,
this story for me.
I'm just serious. You are seeing things. You are.
Well, no, get
You can't
this. Look at when Ratchet goes, "What's wrong?"
Yeah.
Yeah, and you see Buster's face.
Yeah.
That's Prometheus eyes.
Oh, good God.
Okay, well,
He's got something in him.
Oh dear.
You are sick, sick people.
It's not, though, because there is something decidedly dark about this whole thing.
Fair enough.
You don't see Prime's eyes. Prime doesn't say anything. Tricky, as you said, he needs to tell him what he's going to do. He's literally letting him stroll out of there.
It's just gone in with the probes and that's it. It's just, figure it
and
out
then-
for yourself.
And then Ratchet goes, "What happened?" And Buster's like, "Oh, it's not important." As his eyes go pink and
I don't want
gooey.
to talk about it.
Oh, and by the way, Prime's a prisoner and the Autobots, they're all dead. And I love how you get a reaction shot of a cab.
yeah.
So they stick little reaction lines around the cab's top.
What?
Okay, well, we'll move off that then into something a little bit more
The best.
what you would
page
expect.
ever.
The best page ever, but a page that is rather more interesting than at first it appears. Inside the Ark, Shockwave hears his name and turns to see Megs, who calmly informs him he's free of command, able to go. And the way that he lets him go is by pointing his fusion cannon point blank into his chest, firing it, sending Shockwave flying through the hull of the Ark, the plating, the surrounding mountains, and out and down into a not so nearby town and its high school football team stadium. Now don't worry folks, I know what your first concern is, and I can assure you it's American football, it's not soccer.
Oh, thank God.
Don't worry, it's okay. So one of the controversies, and it's not a controversy as much as an odd fact I suppose, but one of the most interesting things about this page is that it looks like the last panel was not drawn by the artist. People have noted in the intervening years that the art in that panel looks different to the art in the rest of the issue and is very similar to an artist called William Johnson who drew Shockwave in a more toy-accurate style in the next two issues. Also, when this came up for reprints, it was pointed out that that page, that image, had aged at a different rate to the other art. So it looks like this was literally just a piece of art taken from somewhere else.
It definitely looks more detailed. There's been a lot more time spent on that.
It's a hell of a page. It is a beautiful page. It's something that I would really love to see somebody homage, I think, in a future story. It's just really dramatic.
Go for it, Joe.
Awesome. So whilst the puny flesh creatures flee, Megs strolls down all cocky to finish the job. Now, I would have actually expected a huge force outside of the base, given that Shockwave has attacked people in the open, has no need for subtlety, doesn't even consider humans as any form of threat, even less so than Megatron, who baited them at the end of the miniseries. But for the moment, it's just the two cons against each other. I don't think there's even the helicopter as well, which makes a bit of a mockery of the cover. Copperbug does a really good job of selling Megatron here. He's strolling out powerfully through the town, sure of his purpose. You know, this fight is being set up, these two guys against each other, and Megatron looks strong. But Shockwave floors him by throwing what looks like a pile of wooden planks at him, which is a bit weird. Then we have a bit of an anomaly. okay, I'll read this whole thing out the way I see it, and you guys tell me what you think, okay? Shockwave has kind of been established as being a tiny fraction of a percentage less powerful than Megs. But Megs is a leader, and Shockwave is a statistician. But as the two fight, Shockwave reminds Megatron of his situation, and this is how I imagine it going.
That next speech bubble, the bottom of the page, that's coming. That shouldn't be coming from Megatron, should it?
Yeah, that's it. There we go. Right. So So Shockwave starts. You are a fool to attack me. At your full strength, you are less than me, and you're not at full strength. Your wounds are not fully healed. Pain still racks you with every move. So I think all of that should be from Shockwave.
Definitely.
Yeah. What's happened here is that they couldn't work out how you get that speech bubble towards Shockwave's face.
Yeah, because it's very, very busy, isn't it? That bottom panel. And yet it's weird. The panel above as well, Megatron still looks really badass. I mean, he's kind of sold as still being, and he's fighting as well. He's fighting back, just like Josie. Neither of them are giving up. They're both fighting Shockwave, even though they're in a weaker position. And they have both been told to back down. Both of them keep doing it. And unfortunately, after Shockwave grabs a water tower, which is very much in the shape of one of those old-fashioned yards of ale. And instead of swinging it down comically, oh, come on, it is, isn't it? Down.
I've never seen a water tower like that before.
That's great. He swings the water tower on Megs, and you just see this lovely shot of Megs who's still fighting, punching up against it, but not realizing, of course, that his wiring is exposed. He's still damaged. And so the water hits Meg, and the guy fries. Exactly like Josie. You know, a large amount of current goes through him. Just to make sure that Megatron is down, Shockwave then turns into a gun and fires at him from point-blank range, which is a nice little retort to Megs. And Megs is left doing a disco pose at the bottom of a deep crater. Look very carefully, folks. You'll see I'm right. That is 100% Saturday Night Fever pose.
Oh, good.
It's perfectly square as well.
Perfectly square. So with the battle over, of course, you would expect that would be that. I mean, that's it. Get rid of Megs. But Shockwave is being established here. And again, as I said at the start, it's not scary that he's a bad guy. We have bad guys. In the 80s, we had our Skeletors, our Megatrons. But what makes a fearsome and very intimidating bad guy is somebody that is logical. Logic dictates he keeps a resource known as Megatron because Megatron is more important alive than dead. And so he tells him that. Now Megs is back in his Angry Bird revenge mode straight away, thinking to himself, I'll get you, rah! But it doesn't matter. Shockwave doesn't care. He's made his point. And we return then back to Bullflower Ratchet, who's still stuck there. He's going to get clamped if he stays there much longer. Still stuck outside the Ark, and now he sees the combatants return. Shockwave is carrying Megs like the end of an officer and a gentleman. And neither he or Buster can do a damn thing. And back in his base, Shockwave parades this battered chassis of Megatron in front of the rest of the troops. He dares them to challenge him. He's further enforcing his rule. And in the resulting cheer, which is suspiciously coordinated, even Megs has to join in. And poor old Ratchet and Buster are left still at the end of the issue, outside, without hope, and it's so bad that Ratchet's even adopted the Decepticon badge as a possible life choice. Just look at it, he's wearing a Decepticon badge.
Yeah.
Oh, he is.
So.
Oh, Ratchet, how could you?
How could you? Joe, we'll start with you. So, I mean, the thing is, the issue doesn't really have many beats and spots where I can turn to you guys and go, so what do you think of that? Because from the moment that the fight starts, it's basically the issue just goes until the end.
Yeah.
But what do you make of this matchup?
It's doomed to fail from the start because obviously Shockwave's a logical guy. He wouldn't have just left Megatron strung up on all them cables, knowing full well that as soon as he gets better, his he knows what he's going to do. He knows he's going to free himself. So it's going to be a mismatch. He knows he's going to come after him. He's ready for him. He uses his logic against him with the water tower, and definitely in the better position to sort of win the fight. But yeah, it's quite well done. I kind of wish it would have had a bit more banter from Megatron. All he says really is, "I am the commander of the Decepticons." Is not really himself. He's not firing on all cylinders. It's quite a good battle scene, showing how cool and logical Shockwave can be, but I wish it would have gone on a bit longer. And a bit more from Megatron would have been nice.
Paul?
It's an okay. It's okay. It is a good old fight, and I love that page where it's split in three. It's a lovely, lovely page. But it just feels a bit like a pause issue.
Yeah.
I don't feel there's been a huge amount of development. Or that there has been development, but it doesn't. And there's been huge developments, to be honest. With basically the birth of Circuit Breaker, or the pre-birth. You've got the thing leading into what will be second generation.
Dun dun dun.
And the fight, while has got some good points, I just didn't feel jazzed by this issue.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to find out where it was, and I just feel like we peaked too early with the last issue. Maybe, I don't know. It was okay. It was
tricky. Is it because we're spending time with two Decepticons here? Because it's a massively Decepticon heavy issue. But the only thing that Prime does is that like a bit of a jerk.
He's a solid teenager.
And the only thing that Ratchet does is just kind of sit there ineffectually, whilst his wheels get ever and ever smaller.
And then change sides.
Yeah.
It looks like his tyres have fallen off by the last panel.
That's how long he's been there.
But it does, this has an awful lot of stuff in it.
There's a lot in this, and I think we'll cover most of it at the end. One thing I really do like here was when Shockwave picks up the water tower, I just get images of Dr. Bong.
Oh, nice.
I'm waiting for the villain with a bell for a face to turn up, because that's his hammer. That really is. Especially when he swings it and you get a kablang. I'm really disappointed that's not a kabong.
I don't know what that is, but that sounds awesome.
Oh, Dr. Bong's amazing. It was Howard the Duck villain.
Yes, he was.
And so, after watching Johnny Mnemonic, we ask all our listeners to go and check out Howard the Duck from Marvel Films. It's a Marvel film. You'll love it.
Yeah.
No bestiality in it whatsoever. Don't care what anybody says.
I'm also really loving, let me get this right, because I get these two mixed up. I'm really loving Frenzy's shades. It looks like he's fallen out of the Matrix.
So glad you said Frenzy.
Yeah, I had to think about it, but yes, that's Frenzy. Because Rumble is red, Frenzy is blue.
I think we established in the last issue, gentlemen, they were both the same colour.
I have a question, though, about this same panel.
Go on.
Who's next to Thundercracker? Who's supposed to be... oh, no, it's Thundercracker there, yeah.
Soundwave?
There's multiple issues with the colouring of the cons. We've got... Famously, of course, we've got the block colouring.
Oh, yeah.
In several scenes. And then we've got other panels as well where Soundwave looks smaller than Rumble.
Yeah.
But Rumble we don't see him in the below panel.
Yeah, I'm not concerned too much about that. I mean, it's very early in the book. They're still playing with how things work, etc. But the guy next to Thundercracker, he's white and red for a start. It looks like half of Grimlock's face that's been truncated. And then a right arm, which it looks like the back end of a jet. I have no idea what that is.
Yes, yeah, it's.
Draw some shapes.
It got some weird and wonderful. Well, I think I mentioned this in a previous episode as well. I just could not get. I think it was issue 5 was the first issue issue 6 was the first issue I got. And in the background of one of the scenes in issue 6, you've got Shockwave stood there. And I could not for the life of me figure out why, as a young kid, what was going on, because it didn't make sense.
It's because they've run out of Decepticons.
They ran out of Decepticons, and they were using stock models, and they thought, very much like the Bay films, that if you've got a model, you might as well kind of keep using it, and they'd just say that they're clones or something. So, yeah, there was lots of weird and wonderful stuff with the art here. Yeah. I honestly, I do feel sorry because, you can see with these artists, very much like the UK artists when we went through like Man of Iron, is that as soon as they're depicting humans, they've got most of them anyway, a naturalness and a pose. The football players, we won't go into because some of them are a little bit too big.
Check out the green dude.
The green dude with his offset neck.
And his head's coming out of the top of his shoulder. That's amazing.
Actually, the guy who hopes that they're not playing for DeForest High, he reminds me of someone from Mad magazine.
He really does, doesn't he?
Oh, the freckly guy.
Yeah. But again, they can bring all that expression, but if you're a guy who's been drawing superheroes and humans for this long and somebody plonks a transformer, and especially a G1 transformer in front of you, Megatron, how on earth are you going to make that thing look effective in battle? It's a struggle for them, so they just do what they can.
Yeah.
They've completely nailed the OAPs on that panel when Megatron gets fried. There's some great expressions there.
That is. Oh, we'll come back later, Mildred.
Let's move away.
Let's move away. Let's sashay. I do like as well the orange and pale green combo that he's got rocking. I might cosplay as that for AA. See if anyone gets it. So, but we get to the end and, I mean, Paul, it's probably a lower point than last issue because it's not that the Autobots are outclassed here or they're beaten. It's that they're not even relevant.
No. And the ones that are around are either slightly dubious or ineffectual to the extent that they haven't moved. Neither Autobot alive has actually moved. And like you say, Ratchet's turned to Decepticon. That's the first time I've ever seen that, actually.
First time I did, actually, when I was reading through it, and I was like, wow, if you were a sharp kid and you picked that up at the time, your whole world must have been like the end of the Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That's if you ever come across the end of that, is that you have to just become them because there's no one else left.
Yep. That would have been cool if that would have been the actual twist, and it turns out Ratchet's a Decepticon. And it's like...
to see him walking towards the Ark, going, it's better to be with Cybertronians than on my own.
He's just going to drive forward over him. Slowly.
Just releases the parking brake. Let nature take its course.
Buster, it'll all be over soon. Don't worry, you won't turn into a Prometheus thing. It'll all be
You'll just turn into an odd leg for Protector bots.
So overall, Joe, reading this issue, is it worth it? Is it fun? Is it interesting? Because I'm struggling on how to judge these.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about probably the one thing we could say is people talk about G1 comics as being great. They talk about them as being, that's it. That's all we'll say. Great. Nothing else. Great. So is this a great comic or not?
It's not what I'd recommend to someone who's never really seen it before, seen the original Marvel stuff. I'd be like, yeah, just go for Target 2006 or something like that. So, sort of the middle years when it really did get absolutely awesome. Some of I've always preferred the UK stuff. Well, the majority of the UK stuff anyway, because it seemed a bit more interesting with what they were doing sort of character-wise. But it's worth checking out. If you've never read this stuff before, you might as well just delve in and just read the entire lot. You really might as well. And there is a lot of good stuff in here to enjoy as well. I really liked the opening with Shockwave. And you get a few good things, like you get to witness his power and his changing from a gamma ray to a light beam and stuff. And the bit where there's a little section where it gets hit by the harpoons and it's saying it may be a steel robot, but actually it feels the harpoons going into him and it hurts him and everything. I found that sort of part of the story interesting, and it adds things to the Transformers as a race. There's certain parts like the Prime stuff, it's just a bit almost wishy-washy and sort of you're not really too sure what's happening there. And you haven't really got a hero in this, have you really? You've not really got anyone to root for. It's just, who do you want to win out of the two Decepticons who, out of Megatron and Shockwave? Yep. Who you're supposed to be wanting to win there, and the Autobots aren't really doing anything like's been said already. So yeah, it's not the best issue, but I really would recommend that anyone who's not read these would go back and read them just for. I mean, if nothing else, there's loads of like comedy art mistakes to pick up in there.
Now, just before I ask the two guys, I will say as well, for those of you sat at home going, well, hang on a second, why are you reading through this? Why are you saying, it's not worth it, blah, blah, blah. Fantastic issue last issue. Mm-hmm. And this is providing a middle ground for a barnstorming issue next issue, which I flicked through just before the show, just to remind myself of all the bits there. And it's pretty much got everything that you could want across the board. But everything that it's done, it's doing based off what happens here. So this is clearly more of a connective kind of getting the ducks lined up issue. Yeah. And it managed to fit in a fight. So, folks at home, when you go, well, why are you doing all the G1 issues? Why don't you just do the good stuff? It's because all of this stuff has relevance.
It's still essential. It's still essential Transformers reading. You need to read this stuff. If you're just enjoying the comics today, but you've no idea really where it came from, I'd really recommend just going back and you can pick these things up really cheap. I mean, I'm reading from that, the Titan reprint, that Beginnings. You probably get it on Amazon for about 10p. I think that's what I did.
Well, folks, get the Classics Volume 1, because that's got a nice black cover with Optimus Prime on from IDW. It's got issues 1 to 4, the miniseries, and then it's got a good chunk of what goes on next. And in fact, that goes through to the end of this arc. So you get that first major arc, and you also get one of the nicest one-shots that Megatron ever gets, featuring a gangster. But we're far away from that. Tricky, what do you think about this issue?
Right, just to continue on that theme for a little bit. The first 4 of this, they're a little like Star Wars.
Yeah.
The next 4 issues, a little like The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Then the next 4, you get the Dinobots. Yeah. So think of them as the Ewoks. This is still very much laying the foundations of the Transformers universe. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things in here which kind of lead on to stuff which the longevity of it is incalculable. It's still going today, a lot of the stuff.
Yeah.
This issue in particular is so important because of Josie.
Yeah.
To get that scene and to understand what that means with with hindsight and everything else. She was a person who was just doing a job and was taken out through incompetence and where there's a blame, there's a claim, etc. So to see her anger in later issues, yes, as we discussed before, there's other factors that play into all this. But it's good to see the origin. That's why this should be read by people, because you need to see where these things come from. Other things, I mean, the next issue is the first of an ongoing battle royale between Megatron and Ratchet.
Yeah, this is a huge thing which came out of nowhere. Really came out of that issue and just the artist went, the writers went weakest character versus the strongest in many ways.
Yeah, absolutely. This for me is the foundation of Megatron is an incompetent leader.
Yeah.
Because within, what are we saying here, a couple of days, maybe a week, Shockwave has repaired the Decepticons who have fallen, he's taken over an Orig, he's got them a new base, and he's all about heading forward and either conquering this planet and using it as a petrol station, or heading back to Cybertron and kicking Ratbat in the ass. One of the two. It's not Ratbat, it's Straxus at this point, isn't it?
It's Straxus, yeah.
So, competent leader, logical, etc., getting stuff done. Megatron, incompetent, but strong. Unfortunately, Megatron wins, and the Decepticons don't really go anywhere for a long time.
Very frustrating. The sad thing about this as well is that Megatron would realise that, was it peace through tyranny? The strong survives.
Yep.
And Shockwave informs him and says, you are up to X percentage efficiency in the last issue. He knows he's not fixed. He knows he's not at full strength. It makes no sense whatsoever to take on Shockwave at this point. There must be part of him that says, I know he's scoring victories, but once I'm up to full power, I can take him.
Yep.
But to do this now is, it is stupidity. It makes Megatron out to be stupid. It makes Shockwave, because he lets Megatron live, it makes Shockwave look like an efficient leader, which is something that you'll see so rarely in the old G1 comics. In fact, the next efficient leader that the Decepticons get is Soundwave.
Yeah.
And that's a long way away. And my goodness, is that effective. That's some of the most powerful Decepticon victories that you ever get. That's a long way up at the moment. Yeah, poor old Megs is looking like a bit of a tool.
Yeah, you just look at the Autobots, never get a competent leader.
I don't know what you mean. Rodimus is doing a fantastic job.
Moving on.
It is a gap year issue. I hadn't thought about it in the ways, to some extent, that I knew that it was laying the groundwork for certain things, but not so much that, what was coming immediately after. And to be honest, I was never really seeing Shockwave and subsequently Soundwave in those respects of being efficient. They are efficient, but they don't have the style.
What they're trying to do here is establish how much of a threat Shockwave is. Because it's got to be logical why you throw 5 of the most powerful Autobots at him. Because otherwise, when we get sort of like 6 issues from here, why is he comfortably taking on Grimlock, Sludge? I've made one up. Sludge. I'm copyrighting that one.
Oh, I get why they're doing it. It's just in the context of the issue itself. It just it makes you hate him more. For me personally.
Right, he's just checking his R13, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's one of those things. He's not making you hate him in the kind of, boo, hiss villain. It's more that because he doesn't kill Megatron, and he comes back and he's won, and he's not smug, but if it was anyone else, he would be smug, with that sort of attitude. You don't like him because he's successful.
Yeah.
And, at the same time, the only thing, you can't cheer for anyone here. You can't cheer for Prime because he's done something with somebody's head. You can't cheer for Buster because he looks like he's possessed. And you can't cheer for Ratchet because the bot has not changed into a robot. He's just been sat there. So if anything, his battery's going to run out soon. So
the only one you can almost cheer for, I'd say, is Megatron.
Yeah.
Until the end, when there's no reason for him to he's lifting his arm there, but he's obviously speaking, whispering. So it might as well just be, being a bit sarcastic or something, or...
He's playing, he's having to play along, I think.
It's okay, I've worked it out. The hero of this issue is Blackrock's Taylor.
There we go. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. So, join us next time, resplendent in a red shirt, oversized, for the next issue. Issue 7, ladies and gents, is Warrior School.
Sweet.
It really is a huge step up. It's a really fun issue. I know, as I said at the beginning of this last issue, I think we've covered some of these things before. We covered this yonks ago with Amy and Andrew, but I want to cover this just with the Underbase Classics team because there's an awful lot of fun to be had in that issue. And yes, we are getting ever closer to a few new Autobots turning up, and they are fun. So, gents, thank you so much for joining me on this adventure.
That's been cool.
You're welcome.
Excellent.
And to you 3 people at home who listened to us last time, can you download it approximately 95 times each, please?
I've tried to download it many times.
Doesn't let you, does it? Okay. I'll have my team in Guernsey see if they can do their usual job. And to you at home, to the rest of you that stumble across this, please as well, check out the other podcasts. Again, I'll recommend that people check out Agenda Discussion because people are still downloading that, getting a lot of good feedback. Plus, check out the YouTube channel. I know we're only sticking our podcasts on there at the moment, but people are listening to these on that platform. And as well, we are planning some YouTube-only stuff. And I'm actually quite excited about some of the people that will be getting on board to help with that. So, should be good. But until then, folks, you take care, and we'll speak to you soon on another edition of The Underbase. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bonsoir.
transmission.